Welcome back to the channel and to another WNBA video. We got a full 6-game slate on deck for Sunday, September 16th. We got all 12 teams in action, so we're going to break down and analyze each of those games, talk about which way that I'm leaning as far as the points and the spread. We'll also talk about any player props I found for those games that I like, and then any picks that I put in officially myself, I'm going to list right down there in that pinned comment, so make sure you check back in later so you can see if you'd like to ride along with me. But before we get into these games today, got to go over what we took on Friday and how that all ended up going down. Guys, we put 7 plays in. We cashed on 6 of them. So, man, a 6-1 night. We are on an 18-3 heater. I think it's safe to say that we are on a heater at this point, guys. Kelsey Mitchell, we took her first quarter over 5.5 points, and we cash on that for plus money. Took Brittany Sykes under 3.5 assists. We cash on that one as well. Took the Aces in the Fever, the full game under 177, and that one hits. Now, this one, man, we took Ezzy Mabagor of Seattle over 11.5 points. She had 6 sitting there halfway through the second quarter, and then she goes out with a head injury and does not return. So we do not hit on that, and it is unfortunate because, man, she doesn't get hurt. That's probably the third sweep of the week on this side over here right now, man. So a little salty about it, but hey, 6-1, you can't be mad. We had Alana Smith over 8.5 points. She was sitting at 8 for a minute. I was sweating a little bit. She knocks a 3 in, so we do cash on that one. Took Kennedy Carter over 3.5 rebounds. No sweat here. She cashed that in the first quarter. And then we finished it out with the Mercury team total under 76.5, and we do hit. So like I said, a 6-1 night, 18-3 run on the week. Man, let's go on fire. Let's keep that energy rolling right into this weekend. And let's finish out this weekend. It's Sunday, man. Let's finish it out. A 6-game slate, too, that we can dive into. Let's get going, guys. But before we do, make sure that you smash that like button down below. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already. Now, let's get into these games. We got the Minnesota Lynx taking on the New York Liberty. The Liberty are laying 4 in this one. We have an over-under sitting at 159.5. Now, a win here for New York. That's going to wrap up the 1 seed with 3 games left to play, allowing them the opportunity to rest some of their starters, specifically Stewie and Ionescu, both of who played big roles during the Team USA during their gold medal run in the Olympic break. So the Lynx, they're trying to fend off the Sun for that number 2 seed as well. There's some significance involved there as well, man. The 2 seed will play the 7th, while the 3rd seed plays the 6th. The 2 seed, it looks way more appealing right now. You know, we got the Mercury likely to land at that 7th seed. We got the Fever likely to land at the 6th seed. I don't know about y'all, but I'd rather play the Mercury right now in the first round. The Lynx, man, they're red hot coming into this one. They've won 12 of their last 13. They've gone 9-3-1 to the number over that stretch. It's the first of 2 straight on the road for them. They'll get the Sun after this one before closing out the year at home against the Sparks. The Liberty, they're red hot as well, man. They've won 14 of their last 16. They've gone 11-5 against the spread in that time. They're returning home for this one after back-to-back wins at Dallas over the Wings, and they will be back on the road after this one in Washington before closing out the year at home against Atlanta. Naira Sabali is listed as questionable for New York as well with a wrist injury. These two, they've met 3 times on the year. Minnesota won the first one by 17 at home. And then the second meeting as well for that Commissioner's Cup. It was at a neutral Barclays Center, but that's, of course, in Brooklyn, New York. So kind of just another home game for New York, in all honesty. Minnesota won that one. And then New York bounced back with a 9-point win early in July at home and will look to even up the season series here at 2 apiece. Over the last 10, the Lynx sit 4th for points per game at 85.5, while New York is 3rd with just over 86 per game. The Liberty are 4th, and the Lynx are 3rd in terms of 3-point shooting percentage, and the Lynx have been significantly better shooting from the field overall, sitting at 1st, shooting just over 47%, while the Liberty are just 7th at 43.9%. They sit at 1st and 2nd for assists with just .1 separating the two. So really, in all honesty, they are pretty much tied for 1st in that regard. The Lynx, they have held opponents to the lowest shooting percentage from deep and overall from the field, while the Liberty are 2nd overall, 3rd for threes. Lynx are also forcing the 4th most turnovers and converting the 2nd most points off of turnovers. New York is 1st for fast break points, but Minnesota is 2nd defending points scored off of the break. All things considered, guys, I like Minnesota here to cover. That's the direction that I would be leaning in this one. They've covered this number here at a 82% rate on the year. They've covered in 7 of their last 10 overall. Liberty, they've covered this line at a 74% rate as well, but are only covering the spread at a 50% rate over their last 10. Minnesota has matched up well with New York this year as well. They're one of the few teams in the W that have the depth to hang and compete with this Liberty team. They have a defense that can contain New York on the perimeter, down low. They can slow them down some, and they've shot the ball better as well over their last 10 games heading into this one. So I'm going to lean Minnesota for this one, catching the points. And for the total, I'll look at the under here. The Lynx have hit under this number at a 50% rate on the road in their last 10. New York has hit under this number at a 70% rate in their last 10 at home. With seeding implications here, I think we see a more playoff style atmosphere and a ramped up defense from both sides. They've hit under this number as well in two of the three that they played on the year. And next up, going to be looking at the Atlanta Dream taking on the Washington Mystics. Washington is laying 1 in this one. We have an over-under of 152.5. This one is definitely interesting. We have two teams battling it out for that 8th and final playoff spot as the Dream are just one game behind the Mystics currently. These two just played on Friday in Atlanta, and Washington pulled out a 3-point win while shooting 43% from the field and 38% from deep, and holding Atlanta to just 25% shooting from deep, 28% overall. Despite that big discrepancy shooting wise, like I said, it was just a 3-point Mystics win at the end of the day. Now, Atlanta won the rebound battle, 41-33. They won the turnover battle as well, forcing 14 from Washington to or forcing 17 from Washington to their 14. They also had 12 steals to the Mystics 8. Atlanta was up 6 after 1. Then they had a miserable second quarter that they lost 20-10, and then they beat the Mystics by 1 over the course of the remainder of the game in the second half. So the Dream did. It's not like they played a horrible game. They just had a horrible second quarter, and just really didn't recover from there. And they don't have the offense really. If they fall behind, they don't really have that offensive capability. I feel like to like shoot themselves back into a game. They win games by their defense. So they got to jump out to leads early, and they maintain them from there. But that come from behind game, that's not Atlanta style. Shakira Austin is going to be out for Washington, and Aaliyah Edwards is doubtful for the Mystics as well. The Dream have no new injuries reported on their side. So the thing is, man, Atlanta in their last 10, they're just 2-8 straight up, 4-5-1 to the number, while the Mystics are 7-3 straight up and 9-1 to the number. Washington has only been favorites 4 times on the year, and they are 4-0 against the spread in those games. Atlanta, as road dogs, are 7-4-1 to the number, but the trends are still screaming Washington, though, and it's hard to look anyway but their direction for this one. I don't expect the Dream to shoot that poorly, but back to back. But this isn't a good offensive unit by any means. Over their last 10, they sit at just ninth in offensive rating. The Mystics defensively in that time, they've been the second best unit in the W. They are third in three-pointers made in their last 10 and first in shooting percentage from deep. So I'm going to lean Washington, and I may just look at them on the money line for this one. And then for the total, I'd lean full game. I'd go with the under because I just don't trust that Atlanta offense. But that's a risk, man. Anytime the number sits this low, I really hate playing unders when we have totals at like 155 or below. It's just a sweat the whole time, and it's not fun. It's not fun. Betting unders, the public doesn't like it anyways because it's not that fun, right? Sometimes it is obviously the smarter play, and that's what we roll with. But yeah, betting a total under 155, it's just a complete sweat. And then you're shooting for a game where like the teams are scoring in the 70s at best. It's just not as entertaining, obviously. Um, the Mystics as well, they've just been hot offensively. In their last 10, they were crushing this 152 and a half number, hitting the over at a 90% rate. I think I like looking at the Mystics team total over 76 and a half more than the field or full game total. But even that feels like a risk considering that they can only put up 72 on Friday against Atlanta. And for all their struggles offensively, Atlanta isn't a horrible defensive team by any means. And this is what's kept them in the playoff hunt. So I'll probably stay off the total in this one. It feels like too much of a sweat, and why force things on a 6-game slate? We got plenty of options to choose from. So probably stay off the total for this one. The player prop I'd be looking at for this one would be Jordan Canada of the Dream. Her rebounds and assists over 9.5. Now we can get this on FanDuel right now at plus 102 odds. Now guys, we have jumped over. This is Outlier. If you guys are not on Outlier, make sure you check down in the description and in the pinned comment. You'll find a link there for a free 7-day trial to where you can try out Outlier for yourself. Man, we're going to go through it a few more times in this video. You're going to get to see firsthand for yourself how useful this tool is. And like I said, man, you can get a free 7-day trial. So make sure you jump down there into that description and into the pin comment as well. But like I said, man, we're looking at Jordan Canada, looking at her rebounds plus assists over 9.5 for plus money. In her last 5 games, she's hit this at an 80% rate, 4 out of her last 5. And that one that she didn't hit was against Minnesota in that premier defense that they roll out. And then, push it back a little bit further. Let's see how consistent we are smacking this number. We're looking at a 60% rate in her last 10. We're still green in the last 20, hitting at a 55% rate. And that's another great thing about Outlier, guys. It's just color coded for us, right? Making it real simple. Green is good, red is bad. So we can look up here and kind of see across the board her last 5, last 10, her head to head against Washington, and 2024 for the year. We're sitting at green at all of those, right? And we can come up top here and break it down and look at it individually at each game, see how many or how many rebounds and assists that she's gotten in each of these, and see how much she's averaging over that time span. Just like I said, so many different ways to look at it, but head to head, she is hitting this at a 75% rate as well. And if we look over here, we can see that Washington against guards specifically, they rank 7th for rebounds allowed and 7th for assists allowed, so middle of the pack there. So we gotta like this odds here. If we look over here as well, Outlier has these insights for us sometimes, basically just like a trend, right? And it'll break this down and we can filter it according to whatever that trend is. And this one here, we're looking at her in 5 of her last 6 games on the road. She's actually averaging 10.5 rebounds plus assists and hitting over this number at a 83% rate 5 out of her last 6 times. So that's her on the road in her last 6 games, like I said, hitting at an 83% rate. So gotta like this, man. There's a lot of green up here. And Washington just on the year has not been the best guarding or against guards for rebounds allowed and assists allowed as well. Next game I'm looking at is going to be the Dallas Wings and the Indiana Fever. The Fever are laying 8 in this one. We got an over-under sitting at 185.5. It's one of the highest ones I've seen this year. The Fever have a slight rest advantage here, playing in their 3rd game over the last 6 days, while the Wings will be on game 4 in that same time span. Dallas has lost 7 straight. They're just 3-7 to the number in their last 10. The Fever, they come into this after losing back-to-back to the Aces at home, and they are just 1-3 in their last 4, with another home loss in that span coming against the Lynx. This is the 3rd meeting between these two. The Wings won the first match in Dallas that took place right before the break. They won that by 8 points, and then the Fever beat the Wings in Dallas in the second match by 7 earlier this month. Indiana has only been favorites of 5 points or greater 6 times this year. They've covered in just 2 of those, but the Wings, they're just 6-10 to the number as road dogs on the year. And they've had some large spreads, guys, double-digit spreads that they did not cover as well in that chunk of time. The Fever over their last 10 are second in terms of both three-point shooting percentage and from the field overall. Dallas is in for it here, man, as they give up the highest shooting percentage from deep and overall from the field. Staying in the last 10 games, the Wings are averaging the most points per game at 89, with Indiana right behind them at 88. They are 5th in shooting percentage, but just 10th in terms of three-point shooting percentage. Indiana is second to last in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage, but 4th for opponents' overall field goal shooting percentage. The Wings are second, just zero point 0.1 points from first for second chance points. So another one where we can pretty much say they are tied for first for second chance points. The Fever are just 8th in defending such buckets, but the thing is, while Dallas is second in offensive rebounds and points in the paint in their last 10, the Fever are just 8th in offensive rebounds in that time. Indiana is first in opponents' points scored from the paint. So the thing is that Indiana, they're susceptible to giving up points from the perimeters, right? So like teams that they give up the most 3-point shots, actually, the most 3-pointers made. So these teams that like can get these offensive rebounds and kick it out and find the open shooters on the perimeter, they've been able to have some success. But Dallas, they prefer to play from inside, right? So they're attempting the second most 2-point field goals in the W and the second least 3-point attempts. Indiana really isn't getting beat that way. They're not getting beat down low. This does not bode well for Dallas as well. The Fever, they sit at 500, right, in the standings. They're 19-19. Every team above them has winning records. Every team below them has losing records. So against those 6 teams below them with losing records, like I said, they're 19-9, right? Against those 6 teams below them, the Fever have eaten, guys. They are 15-4 straight up. and 13-6 to the number. So I like the Fever to win this one. I really do. But this would be the largest line on the year that they have covered if they end up covering this. And I just don't know that I see them doing that. I want to get behind them and fading them is scary, but this line is large, man. And I don't know, man. They can't move up the standings. They would only move down if Phoenix were to win out in their last three, which I'm not sure that I see that happening either. So I'm not sure the motivation will be there for 40 minutes with the Fevers. I think rotations could be shortened as well and switched up. Trying to get some rest for players heading into the postseason. And if this is one of those games where Indiana like jumps out to a big lead, I don't see the starters staying out there. I don't see that effort remaining to like maintain that large lead. I definitely could see a backdoor cover here for Dallas. So I'm gonna go crazy and lean Dallas here with the 8 points. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not crazy, but it feels a little crazy to lean Dallas at any time. But yeah, 8 points just feels like a little too much for Indiana right now, in this current landscape of where we're sitting at the end of the regular season. Looking at the total, I'm gonna lean under in this one. This number is high because they've cleared 190 in both of the previous matches. But in their last 10 on the road, the Wings have hit under this number 8 times. Their last 20, they've hit under this number 17 times. At home over their last 10, the Fever have hit under this number 7 times as well. And then in their last 20, they've hit under the number 16 times. So, like I said, I'm going to lean under here. I don't think that the motivation is going to be there, like I said, for the full 40 minutes. And then the Wings are playing for nothing, guys. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't see us having this offensive explosion that we've seen in the first couple games. I do think that I honestly just think it's going to be a little bit of a sloppier game than what the books are anticipating here. Jumping back over to Outlier, we got a player prop that I like, and it is an offensive player prop. Talking about how, I'm not really looking at this to be an offensive explosion type of a game, and I'm not, man. But I am looking at the first quarter here, a pick that we just cashed on, and we're gonna run it back, man. So we're gonna find it at plus money again. Um, okay, so Kelsey Mitchell, her first quarter points over 5.5. We can find this on FanDuel at plus 106. She's hit in 8 of her last 10, right, at an 80% rate. And then on the year, or in her last 20, she's hit at a 60% rate, 12 of her last 20. Head to head against Dallas, first quarter points, 1 out of 2 on the year, 60% over her last 5 games. But we look at Dallas, man, and their points allowed, they sit at last against guards, second to last. Not like it gets much better, right? And then what we pointed out in yesterday's video, because like I said, we took this and we did cash. Friday's video, excuse me, no games yesterday on Saturday, but she plays every minute of the first quarter, right? We can push it back to the last 10. She's playing every single minute of those first quarters. And she looks to shoot the ball. She is a scorer. She's not looking to distribute the ball. She's not looking to facilitate. She gets the rock in her hand, bro. She's trying to put it through the hoop. So I like our chances here of her cashing this. We just need her to get 6 points in the first quarter. Like I said, she cashed it for us last time. I think I run it back on this one. The next up, going to be looking at the Phoenix Mercury taking on the Chicago Sky. We have an over-under sitting at 157.5. We have both Kalia Copper of Phoenix and Camila Cardoso of Chicago listed as questionable in this one. And Diamond DeShields hasn't played since last Sunday when she sprained her ankle, and she's out for this one too. The Sky have lost 8 of their last 10. Phoenix has lost 6 of their last 7. These two, they've met twice on the year, both times in August, and the Mercury won both by 18 and then 20 points, respectively. The Sky's biggest strength on the season has been their rebounding, but Angel Reese leads that charge. She is now out for the season. In the 3 games that they've played since she's been out, Chicago has dropped from first in rebounding to just 7th. They're scoring the 3rd lowest points per game. They've fallen to 5th in second chance points, and just 7th for points in the paint. They're giving up the second most second chance points as well and the 3rd most fast break points. Phoenix over their last 10 games have been a mess themselves lately, however. So they're last in fast break points. They're second to last in second chance points. They're last in points per game, second to last in both 3-point and overall shooting percentages. So, all in all, man, I just don't feel too strongly about this game. I don't really have much interest in betting the line here. But I guess, if I had to choose, I would lean Phoenix. But both teams are hard to trust and get behind here at the end of the season. Chicago just at least makes sense, that it's hard to get behind them with the injuries that they faced. Phoenix is a little different, man. I do think that they are just, maybe just simply dealing with the fatigue of three of their stars being on Team USA. And they, didn't get a month's worth of rest. But talking about Kai Copper, Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, they all played in the Olympic Games. But in that aspect too, man, the Liberty are rolling, right? And two of their stars, their two biggest stars, were um, playing significant roles in the Olympics. So doesn't make a whole lot of sense, Phoenix and the struggles that they've had, especially on the offensive end, man. They have just really fallen apart offensively. And that leads me into the total. I'd lean under with the struggles of each of these offenses. But again, this isn't a game that I'm looking to play really, but I guess I would like this more than the spread, the total. No, yeah, I'm not a big fan personally. I have found some player props that I like in this one actually. And that's going to lead me into my next pick, Kennedy Carter of the Sky. Her rebounds over 4.5. Now we did just cash on this. Like I said earlier, man, we did take her over 3.5, and she did cash that in the first quarter. The books have only adjusted by raising it up just one more rebound. And she just happens to be playing against a Phoenix team that is second to last for rebounds allowed, four guards. In her last 10, she has hit this at hit over this number at a 60% rate, six of her last 10. And if we look at her head to head against Phoenix on the year, she has hit this. Um, well, the one time that they played, she did hit this. And looking at the Sun and the Aces are laying 4.5. We have an over under sitting at 159.5. The Aces are a game ahead of Seattle for the fourth seed and home court advantage in the first round, which in these best of three series, it definitely feels important. The first two are played at home for the higher seed, with the third on the road if it makes it that far. The Sun, they're a game back from the Lynx for the second seed, and this also feels important for what we talked about earlier, man. The second seed is most likely to face the Mercury, while the third seed is most likely to see the Fever. And obviously, it would probably make more sense to want to face the Mercury in this situation. Fever going to be the tougher matchup. But no new injuries to report on either side. This should be a fun game, man. The Aces have really started to lock down on the defensive end. They're fourth in the for defensive ratings over their last 10 games. And they've won 6 of 7, covering in all of those up until their last game, where they won straight up over the Fever but pushed on the spread. They have allowed just 73 points per game in their last 7 games. The Sun, they have won 7 of 10, covering in 6 of those. They're on the road here for the last game of a 4-game road trip that they are so far undefeated on. Over their last 10, they are first in defensive rating and shooting the ball at the third highest rate overall from the field. They're scoring the most fast break points and the most off turnovers. They are second in steals and third in blocks, and forcing the second most turnovers per game. They've met twice on the year so far, back in late June in Vegas for an 11-point Aces win and cover, and then earlier this month in Connecticut for another Aces victory and cover. I like the Aces at home here, man. They match up well with Connecticut, and they have shown so in the previous two matchups this year. I think the Sun will be a tough outcome playoff time, but I just think the Aces have more to play for right now, and are looking to keep building up some positive momentum heading into the postseason after a up and down kind of season. And then for the total, I'm going to look under here. The Sun, they have been on the year one of, if not the top defenses in the W, while the Aces have been on fire as of lately on that end, holding opponents to the lowest points per game, like we just mentioned a moment ago, over their last 10. So I wouldn't mind looking at the Sun team total under as well, but I can't find that currently, any lines for it on any of the books. So we'll just have to wait and see where that number ends up landing when that prop becomes available. But I could definitely see that being a look for me as well. Then a player prop I'm going to be looking at in this one, we'll jump back over to Outlier. It's going to be Jackie Young of the Aces. Her points and rebounds under 17.5. Now we click over here. We can see that we can find this on Bet365 at -130. In her last 5, she's hit this at an 80% rate, 4 of her last 5, and then in her last 10 at a 70% rate, 7 of her last 10, she has hit under this mark. And then head to head, she is hitting the under here at a 80% rate, actually in her last 4 straight against the Sun. And then the 2 on the year this year, she has gone well under this number, right? 3 total points and rebounds, and then 12 total points and rebounds in those 2 games against the Sun this season. And then if we look over here at Connecticut, um, overall, against guards for points and rebounds allowed, they are first. So I like this one here. I like it a lot, man, at 17.5. We can even look if we want to get a little more, daring with it. We can look at her at under 16.5, and we can get that at minus 102. So, and I still think we have a chance there, but just that extra point and or rebound, just gives us a little bit more insurance. I like it a little bit better there at minus 130. But if you want to get a little bit more bang for your buck, you can. Um, cut it down to 16.5 there. And, she is still playing that Connecticut Sun defense. So I still think that you have a good chance of hitting there at that number as well. Then, one of my favorite props, man, Marina Mabrey, her points over 13.5. Now, we've hit on this countless times. Should have took it in her last game. I was considering it. I didn't see any props when I made the video. One of you was kind enough to throw it down in the comments that prop had become available. And I went back and forth on it for a minute. I'm like, you know what? I've already got 7 picks in. Let's just chill out, Trey. Let's not get too crazy. She ends up killing this one, man. So definitely should have took that and cash on that one as well. But we can find her for this game over 13.5. Get that at minus 115 on FanDuel currently. Now, in her last 5, she's hit this at a 60% rate, right? If we look a little bit further in her last 10, 8 out of her last 10, she has hit the over. So looking good there. It's just green across the board for Marina when it comes to this um, prop right here. Excuse me, guys. Over 13.5 points. Like I said, she's just green across the board, whether it's her last 5 or last 10, last 20. She's still sitting at a 65% rate. Head to head against the Aces, she has looked really good, especially this year. She's actually played them. This will be her 4th time playing them. She played them twice with the Sky. And she's hit over the mark in all 3 of those games on the year this year. And then the aces against guards are actually just sitting middle of the pack for points allowed. So, you know, they have ramped up their defense, though. So that is something that we got to be concerned with. But like I said, man, Marina Mabrey head to head against them has done well on the year as far as points. She's kind of lit them up from the perimeter. So, and Vegas does struggle against the perimeter shooting. So, uh, this might be worth putting a half unit on. We'll see how we feel closer to tip off, man. Like I said, that Aces defense has been rolling though, so it makes it a touch more scary. But man, I like these Marina Mabrey over props, so we shall see where we land. Make sure you check that pin comment to see if we end up rolling with that one. Then, guys, the last game on the slate we're looking at is going to be the Los Angeles Sparks taking on the Seattle Storm. The Storm are laying 8.5. We have an over/under sitting at 159.5. Now, this one was sitting at Seattle minus 11.5. We've seen that number bought down to 8.5 that it's at currently. The under over has dropped a couple points as well. Now, we'll talk about that here in a minute because there's some other things that have fed into that in the drop in both the spread and the points. But the Storm have won each of the 3 games played between the two on the year by 8, 6, and 16, with the over cashing in each of those. LA has won just once in their last 14 games. The Storm, meanwhile, have won 4 of their last 5, but have only covered this specific number once during that span. So I get seeing that live movement. The Sparks have covered as double-digit dogs 12 out of 17 times. So it does make sense that it was bought down. And then we also have to add in the fact that Joel Lloyd and Ezzy Magmagor of Seattle are both out. So you can start to see why that number is continuing to drop. With both out, however, I'd still look at the Sparks here. Um, they're a young, scrappy team, man. Ezzy is a force down low defensively, and her absence will definitely be felt. And Lloyd, while definitely inconsistent, she can be a dynamic scorer when she gets hot. So I'm going to lean LA with the points in this one. If I can catch it at anywhere from, I'd say probably 6.5 up, I like it there, guys. But for the total in the 3 games played between them on the year so far, they've landed at 172, 172, and 174. This number is all the way down at 159.5, and that's mostly in part to the limited scoring options for Seattle when we take Lloyd and Mapagor out of the picture. So, despite the overs and the trend screaming over, I'm gonna lean under here. But I'll probably stay off the total in this one. It just feels a little risky, not knowing where Seattle going to get the points from. Um, who becomes the first option, the second option. Yeah, it just feels a little not worth the time, to be honest. Better plays on the board for today. And a prop that I'm going to be looking at, we'll jump back over to Outlier. It's going to be Rakia Jackson of the Sparks. Her points over 15.5. Now, we can catch this on DraftKings for the best price right now at minus 115. And if we look over here at Seattle and how they do against Ford specifically and their points allowed, they do sit at free, right? They're 3rd in the W. So that doesn't look too good right off the rip. We don't like seeing that red. However, we got to remember, right, the injuries involved in this one. Ezzy Mabagor not being in there. She is down there in the post, contributing to that high ranking for that Seattle defense. So we got to keep that in mind there. She will not be out there, so that does definitely help us out in that regard. Rakia Jackson in her last 5, she's hit this at an 80% rate. She's actually hit her last 4 in a row, and did so against the Sun twice, right? And then against Seattle just this past Wednesday. So you gotta like that one here. And if we can push it back a little bit further, look at her in her last 10, she's still hitting consistently at a 70% rate. And if we look at her head to head, she is hitting at a 67% rate. She did not hit in that first one back in June, early June. But then the last 2 meetings from or against Seattle, she has hit the over. So, guys, that's going to wrap it up, man. I hope you guys enjoyed the content today. I hope you found it helpful and useful. And if you did, please do not forget to smash that like button right down there below and hit subscribe if you have not already. That way you don't miss out on any of the content that we are dropping daily. Guys, let's have a great Sunday. Let's finish this week off with a bang and keep adding to these units. Let's keep stacking up on them. And I will see you guys on the next video, man.